Alrighty, happy, what is it? Oh, Friday, my goodness. I know it's been a few days. Oh, here, let's go ahead and try to get this microphone a little bit closer. This is going to be a little bit, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Uh, well, a lot of things have been happening in the AI space, and we've been responding accordingly and really working to be able to not just react, but to build solutions around it. So today, as we've been making a number of changes, we wanted to go ahead and do a really wrap up around the big innovative changes that have been happening between, oh goodness, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. And there's plenty of other folks in the space, but right, we want to just keep it at 4 because, well, 4 is plenty. So starting with NVIDIA, and well, one of the easiest ways to describe it is really just to show it. So one thing you'll notice is that we've had a bit of a shift in our setup here, well, because we're actually using Linux as our main operating system here. I know everyone's been used to seeing Windows for Subsystem Linux 2 or WSL2 using Ubuntu, which is a distro for Linux, one of the most prolific ones and one of the main ones that's supported by NVIDIA for deep learning, hence our selection for it. But really wanted to showcase some of what we've been working with and really show an answer concerning a lot of folks I think are feeling I think there's mixed feelings, to put it lightly, around a lot of the AI innovation that's been happening, particularly around information and privacy, things like that. So I thought it'd be prudent to showcase Linux operating system, not as a call to everybody to shift towards that, because it's not an easy shift to make necessarily. I mean, it is and it isn't, but right, we're not here to tell you, oh, you need to do this, or you need to, privacy is dead, and all these other inflammatory things. My goodness, it's just getting a little silly. Folks who are just talking about spyware and all this. No, this is about being able to have choice, have autonomy. Because, well, the kicker is that there's information that's gathered from just about any device that you're going to use. Everything from, right, whether it's a smart fridge or a smart, insert whatever here, that's collecting data that is then being sent to some cloud or something other to drive. Well, if it's a good application, it's there to drive insightful action. If it's less good, it's just meant to give you a dashboard that you're then supposed to be like, oh, great, I did this many, repetitions. Like, now what do I do? So, say all that because, well, when we start with NVIDIA, because we are actually testing out here their new drivers, which are a software for that they've been using in light of Microsoft's major shift with all of their Copilot Plus PCs, as well as just helping computers be able to better run AI workloads on, they say, the edge, but just on your personal laptop. So you'll notice we're going from left to right here. So we're using NVIDIA's driver. It's called 555-4202, and this is for Linux, Ubuntu. And this is free, so you can just download it from their website. Here, let's see, actually. Let's do Firefox. Boop. And it's going to be NVIDIA driver. There we go. So, all right, if we were to say, and then we're just going to go, yep, so Linux, and then production branch. No, that's 550, though. Let's see, 555 driver, Linux. Reddit, let's not. I mean, Reddit is the source of all knowledge. I mean, right? But yeah, let's go ahead and say something different here. There we go. So yeah, so if you wanted to go ahead and use that, oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. So it's in beta right now, which just means they're still collecting information onto it. But so it has all the technical details here, and I know I can hear people saying, "Oh, but I'm not a computer nerd, or I'm not a technical person." Okay, great. Well, so understand this. This driver, this software, this new program that's being downloaded for free, right? It's all free. I'm also not employed by NVIDIA or right. I mean, I am part of their developer program, but it's like, I mean, you get fun access to things, and it's super cool, and I enjoy it, but I'm not compensated. I'm just, right, I get access to things. So I'm relying on this to be able to, I enjoy having access to cool stuff, and this is a cool thing. So you'll notice here then, right, so we've downloaded this, and we're running the latest version of their CUDA software. So that's really what is at the heart of all of their accelerated computing or high performance computing, HPC, when they talk about that. Anybody who is talking about high performance computing if they're accurate, they're talking about using things like NVIDIA's GPUs with CUDA, or they're talking about using like ROC's NPUs, or now Windows has their Copilot Plus PCs with their neural processing unit, the NPU, which my understanding is that their laptops are going to be having the CPU, so that's going to be for the complex operations that we know and typically use them for. It's going to have an NVIDIA GPU in it. So like my laptop here has a 4070 GPU built inside of it. And then it'll have an NPU, neural processing unit, which is just intended to be able to help with optimizing that overall workflow. Because GPUs are good for the training and also the inference, or so like question answering, actually running the models, but it does take a bit of doing to be able to get all that optimized. I mean, even just getting this driver and having the right version of NVIDIA's CUDA software, and getting the right operating system. So I'm running Ubuntu 24.04 on here, which is the Noble Numbat, the most recent operating system, their new long-term release. LTS, what does that stand for? Long-term solution, I think. And most fun is I'm actually running the new Linux kernel, which at a high level, think of the kernel as like the engine in a car. So the car is going to end up running the same, but it's going to end up running a car is going to be a car no matter what, as long as you have an engine in it. But the kernel, when it's updated, is going to allow for better operating. It's like changing out the parts of your engine. So that way it runs better. Like with a motorcycle, like a Harley Davidson, it starts off what they call stage 0, and then you add things to the engine. You change out like the carburetors, you change out pistons, you add better filtration systems for air, and so overall, like over time, and with that upgrading, even though it's the same engine more or less, you then actually can end up getting more performance out of it because you've improve the different components of it. So, and really this entire setup that you see here, and I know it's a little different, I'm sure the sound quality is going to be taking a bit of a hit while we're getting things working, but everything is running straight up from Linux. And so all this, the nice thing about that is that it's free. So what I'm recording with is free software. What I'm running, these drivers is free software. This operating system I'm running that has full fidelity with all the operations I'm doing, all for free. And it's a matter of then being able to use, it just takes some doing to be able to run it. So as before, when we would have the terminal and be running something onto it, and you would see, at the top here, like Ubuntu, but you would see all the Microsoft stuff. Not so here. This is all straight up a different operating system. Now, I still do have Windows, like the same that you've typically seen on my computer. It's called a dual boot. So we are able to run multiple different operating systems at the same time. Felt like it was now considered that everyone's like, no, computers are taking all our information. Now is probably a good time to just showcase, like, all right, hey, let's help people be alert, not anxious, and not just freak out about throwing all these very high-end terms like spyware, things like that. It is something to be mindful of, right? And with any convenience, with anything involving data, right? I'm not trying to say that, like, don't worry, like, that's not for anybody to decide, but for each individual person. But ultimately, it's, right, each of these, it's a choice. So, right, if people truly wanted to not have to worry about their data being taken, well, you can just, right, throw all your devices out the door, go live in the woods. But you're missing out on that. So it's just, I would submit for consideration. It's much more about how do we help people be mindful and have as much agency as making the decisions for when their information is, when they feel comfortable giving that information and what that process looks like. Like for Microsoft's new operating system with their Copilot Plus PCs, if you don't want to have that, well then don't buy a Copilot Plus PC. Seems like a pretty straightforward answer there. And if you do happen to have a Copilot Plus PC, because, right, we're all trying to keep up with the Joneses, I get that, I've been there, I am there, well then you turn the feature off, as you have the option to, right? So, and it's an individual choice. If you know, and right, the markets will end up deciding. Maybe like the, what's it called, the AI pen from Humane, which is now looking to be sold, or the Rabbit R1. Maybe Microsoft's Copilot Plus PC doesn't go very well. Who knows, right? Like, it's just very difficult to say. Now, that being said, I think that the fact that it has GPT4O, as well as, I mean, just some of the demos you've seen, it's pretty jaw-dropping stuff. And the fact that they made it so thin, to me, I know some folks are saying, like, oh, well, it's going to break so easily. It's like, well, typically before, you had to have, like, you could not have a high amount of processing power with one of those systems without also having a humongous amount of, like, cooling systems and fans. I mean, it sounds like almost like a rocket ship going off. So the fact that they can make it so thin is, and right, like, we'll obviously have to see how it ends up going, but the fact that it's so thin means that they don't have to have necessarily all those fans. You can handle those workloads, and you don't have to have some behemoth of a computer, which, if that does end up working out, I mean, that's fantastic. That's huge. I think the last little bit here, for as far as NVIDIA is concerned, is that they're really at the core of all this, not because, I mean, yes, they've got a newer chip that's with the Blackwell, the BG, I can't even keep up the names, but the NVIDIA, their big thing, being at the epicenter of all this, is because they have the chip, they have the overall, like, stack from a hardware standpoint, and everybody's going to them. It's like they acquired Mellanox, which runs all that high-end throughput, like we're talking like 1 gigabit, 10 gigabit, 100 gigabit per second data transfer. I mean, and so it's not just about one chip. They built the entire data processing center architecture. And in terms of this parallel computing, and I mean, that by itself is, that's why they're really at the center of a lot of these things. It's because they have built that entire thing. They don't have to go outsource to somebody of, oh, we need this kind of Ethernet cable, I mean, these kinds of other processors. No, they just have the entire thing. People come to them. So it's pretty jaw-dropping stuff. But really excited to see, though, and testing out this, the new drivers, and being able to really amplify the workloads and run those more optimally, as well as being able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, being energy conscious with AI workloads and really getting the most bang for the buck with the processors is huge. I'm sorry about that. I had still getting the, what's it called? Yeah, I guess after a little bit, it goes to sleep there. So anyways, so, what we do here, so I have to do an update, boop. So, like our previous setup, We still, I mean, most do mostly, we do most things from the terminal still. And we still use NeoVim because NeoVim is, well, not very energy intensive. And we're still going to set up on this one. Let's see. Yeah, right now it's running NeoVim, but it's running without all the bells and whistles that we typically have, which, right, that's just going to come with time. Not difficult, but nice thing is that, come here, you. With NeoVim, so let's say we wanted to, like, right, typically if you're using a code editor, you would have to open up the code editor, wait for it to get all the plugins, and then start making your application and whatnot. But with NeoVim, let's see, I want to do a test Python application. Test.py, import, import Streamlit, import OS, import Torch. Then, right, I'm not going to actually write it right here because that's, right, come here, you. Nope. Boop. And then done. So where's that? Yeah, test.py. And then test.py. Boop. Yep. So NeoVim is just about, come here, you, being able to just go faster with it in terms of your from flash to bang with the code. Let's zoom that up a little bit here. So running and being able to have these multiple GPUs and being able to have these latest drivers is really again about how do we efficiently train and inference AI models, right? That's the goal. It's not just about what's the best, what's the biggest, what's the fast. It's how do we balance getting the right amount of information through to these models and make it accessible to folks. All right, so next we have, let's see, so really OpenAI and Microsoft, I mean, it's more one of the same thing because the 4.0 that they have made is really, let's do this. GPT4O, oops, yeah. So I know people are sort of losing it a little bit in terms of, oh, well, what about ScarJo and what about the, and I mean, some of YouTubers were talking about how, oh, this is just like the movie Her, the movie that Scarlett Johansson was part of. I feel like that's probably a bit meta to see that you are suddenly having this AI model sort of thrown in your face and being like, oh, look, this is just like the person. I mean, so it seems sort of fair that they would not be super plussed about that. But super interesting to see how GPT-4o is, all being Omni, and the suspicion, because I haven't seen the actual literature for it, as we put out, is that it is still that mixture of experts model. So, but it has multiple different data types they can process at the same time. And so, right, the value of the mixture of experts model is the fact that data goes in and that the model only turns on those experts, maybe it's one, maybe it's 2, 4, 6, 8, however many, that the data is applicable for. So think of, let's say, a multi-specialty medical team. You have a cardiothoracic surgeon, you have a orthopedic surgeon, you have a OB-GYN, and you have a, family medicine. Sure, why not? And then the data comes in of, we have a patient coming in who has, let's go with heart attack, sure. And it's a 65-year-old male. Well, cardiothoracic is probably going to take that because, right? And I'm sure people are like, oh, well, but it's like, for simplicity's sake, it's that data flow is going to go towards that. So too, then does this model allow for, again, as is with the mixture of experts model, but turns out I'm wrong, hey, I'll take that on the chin. But let's just go with that for right now. So this mixture of experts model, it now can take in that nuanced data, whether it's audio and video or text, and it's actually able to tokenize more than just a word, but rather break up the data into smaller parts. So everything now of not just a word, but, it was said at this octave, it was said with this intonation, those two are tokenized, those two are data points that then drive a reaction from the model. which the fact that they are tokenizing to that level is mind-boggling. The fact that you can take the pitch of something, the intonation, and do that at speed, do that very quickly. I mean, that is mind-blowing stuff right there. And the fact that OpenAI, right, has released a desktop application for Apple, saying that this is where their clients are, this is where their customers are. Well, I mean, yeah, because anything that's Copilot right now, and these Copilot Plus PCs is going to be using GPT4O. So now suddenly it's going to be in like both Microsoft computers and Apple computers. So, I mean, right? Like, you go where the customers are, and where those folks who want to be able to use that desktop application and have that same level of access, and they don't happen to have a Microsoft computer, well, then they have an Apple computer. They can do that. So either way, everybody wins by having access to that. And let's see, Google. I mean, yeah, they have their I/O, and I mean, was a lot of great stuff with it. The Gemini era, they've done a huge shift in their overall strategy in terms of. I mean, right. So let's see, Google, Gemini, boop. So I mean, the fact that the search feature, it can do some. It needs a little bit of work, but I mean, we need to remember that, right? How big is Google as a company? I mean, it's huge, and so they had to do a lot of restructuring. Oh, yeah, I don't have access to that on that account right there, but I mean, they made the transformer architecture. Folks who were at Google made the transformer architecture, for goodness sakes. And this is not. I mean, they're not just down for the count. And they have the Google Gemini, the multimodal model they made for medicine, which is just fine-tuning it for medical use cases and very robust there. And really the fact that they've made it multimodal, or able to take in multiple data types from the ground up, from baseline, as the foundation model versus other folks who have had to build towards that, I think is definitely nothing to just ignore. So let's see, so we had NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google I/O, and I mean, right, I think it's like 44 different services that they're running now with AI. I mean, my goodness, it's just like, and that's likely just going to continue. And I mean, right, because how many people use Gmail? And the fact that AI, if they have their Gemini models, or Gem, the open source version, or Gems, whatever they're going to call it, working within email, working within Google Drive, working within Google Docs, I mean, it's going to be cooked in everything. So again, that question of like, okay, well, where does that data live, and what does privacy look like when, I mean, okay, let's say you buy even if you do buy like a super modular, and you build a computer from scratch, well, you're probably going to use the internet at some point, and you're probably going to use Gmail or an email, and it's I don't want to. I don't want to belittle or take away from or discount any concern that there is, right? Again, former intelligence officer, so it's near and dear to my heart that folks can feel that they have agency and that they are aware of when their information is being given and when it's being taken, and what the level of awareness is there. But at the same time, it's sort of this, right? Somebody says, oh, well, I'm going to get rid of, I don't know, I'm going to stop using Microsoft and I'm going to go to Linux. Okay, great, cool. Oh, but I still have Gmail. Okay, I mean, great, sure, use Gmail. Or, oh, I put everything in my Google Drive. Okay, cool. So, that's access that somebody else is having. Oh, I'm a programmer, and I'm going to just make code that, right, but I don't want anybody to see it, so I'm going to put it up on a private repo on GitHub. Okay, cool. Like, yeah, go ahead. Microsoft doesn't GitHub, so, do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, maybe what I'll end with, because I'm actually already going past the time that I thought it would be, is there's this concept in we'll just say the technology space, for simplicity's sake, referred to as information theory. And simply states that information has value as much as it changes a state. So let's say, what's a fun little bit of information? I don't know. What is JoJo Siwa doing these days? I don't even know. I think they're a singer. I'm sure they're a lovely person. But right, you can know that information, but how much, unless you happen to be their manager or on tour or a super fan, well, how much does having that information change what you're gonna do on a daily basis? Does it make you more money? Are you gonna, And again, so too, it's about each person making that choice for themselves, while understanding that there's nobody can know everything at all times. That's just not, people aren't omniscient, so, right? But making as good of an effort as possible, having as much agency to decide what channels have been, what's the balance of convenience versus security. I wish there was a better term, but at a high level, that's just really what it comes down to, is how much time and effort do I want to put in making sure that I keep my information safe. I watch a lot of anime. Somebody knows that, great. You know that I watch Delicious in Dungeon. It's a great anime. If you haven't seen it, definitely check that out. It's super great. I think it teaches people how to cook, honestly. But you know that now. What does it do? Could you make a joke about how I watch anime? Sure. Could you comment on how, well, you were talking about NVIDIA, then Microsoft, then OpenAI, and then Google, and then anime, and I don't really know where the stream of consciousness is there. Yeah, sure. Take your pick, right? But ultimately, it's really going to come down to, I'm sharing all, oh goodness, I have to keep a better eye on that. There's been an absolute deluge of information that has come down from the AI space. I'm not using it as a cop-out, just factual. We've been responding accordingly by building out and completely overhauling our entire operating system architecture. And not that we're abandoning Microsoft or any of the other services that we're using, because that's a knee-jerk reaction. But we're building out Linux because, well, the fact that it uses Rust in the operating system at a pretty robust level, and it's free. Free's great. Big fan of free. And the fact that the open source community really does have a lot more presence on the short term in terms of really adding to and gaining access. So it's just the right choice. It's what the market conditions demand, at least as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it is a lot, but at the same time, want to make sure that we are given a high level overview that isn't going to cover everything in depth to a very deep level, but the takeaway, I think, is to folks, if you made it this far, kudos to you, but I'm going to guess probably not, is that you have a choice. We all have a choice. And the choice really comes down to, it's not about, what AI should I use, because there's going to be a never-ending menu. Right? We're working on that. And it's not going to be about what computer should I buy, because, well, they're all going to effectively do pretty comparable things here in the short term. It's really going to be about what is your internal dialogue on what piques your interest and what really meets the threshold of you should pay attention to seriously, whatever your field of study or profession is, as it's impacted by AI, and what do you just put to the side. And that is a very individual, very personal, say even spiritual decision that nobody can make but for each person as an individual decision. My goal here in ending with this is that I want to be able to help showcase that we still have that decision. That decision has not been taken away or pressed on by anybody. People were like, oh, well, how could these computers take away my privacy? How could this service? I mean, we've been using systems like this for a long time. It's just now much more open in terms of it. So it's more of just more people are aware. And it has gotten much better, right? Like, let's be honest. And just you speak to the technology, it's way better. Like Siri 10 years ago, I don't know, was Siri around 10 years ago? But ultimately, it's going to be a choice. If you don't want to have the AI computer, then don't have the AI computer. If you feel like, well, but what if I'm missing out? Well, I mean, sure, but how much is your own profession, your own personal life going to be affected by that? If it's not, well then, I mean, that seems like the choice to then not worry about it. Instead, worry about things of, well, okay, let's say I have kids. How am I going to communicate with those kids about what should they be using? And how do I help them feel alert and not anxious? I think that is much more important than, oh, well, how do I keep up with everything? I mean, you can't. I mean, my goodness, nor should you. It's not about keeping up with everything. It's about understanding what is the threshold of what gets serious attention and what is, okay, this is sort of hype. And I don't even like that term because everyone just says, oh, this is AI hype. I remember. But, yeah, so the takeaway here, and I'm sure the sound quality will continue, that'll need to improve because you got to go ahead and reconfigure all these things here, but is a lot of things happened in the last few weeks for the AI space. Google, NVIDIA, Microsoft, and OpenAI have all really pushed the envelope. The biggest thing is that they're all giving access at a very low cost, if not, I mean, right? Like I'm running NVIDIA software that's free right now, but that access is on edge, on devices, on premises. In the words of Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, being on-prem is cool again, right? I mean, we still make cloud-native applications because, like, how could you not? The number of data centers are popping up, but it's about folks wanting to have that choice of where does my data live, how do I have access to AI models to do things with that are scalable, that aren't going to cost a huge amount of money, that are secure, that are there to serve me. And I think that choice is important. And it's one that we're working on, and it's one that I think most people are just going to, there's always going to be a space for that. Because ultimately, and it's about giving people that choice of how am I going to navigate the world and what tools am I going to use. So with that, we're going to be back with getting more of these. Oh my goodness, third time's a charm. So working on getting back with this, but just wanted to go ahead and put this first one out here again, because now that we're on this, our new shininess here, my goodness. Let's see, is this, don't do that. Yeah, well, we're all learning here. Ooh, look at that. But yeah, this is still same computer, but it is now, again, we're running this new software. It's on Ubuntu, the Linux, or one of the main Linux distros that you can just download for free. We're running the 2404 distribution, codename, Noble Numbat. Some kind of wrote it, I think. And running Ubuntu Studio that's optimized for like audio, visual, things like that. But yeah, overall though, it's just cool to be able to have something like this. And again, not like I'm a big fan of what all the different companies are doing. Like people's like, oh, big tech. Like, you're giving people information. You're giving them access to tools that 20 years ago we thought we would never have. And you're really amplifying human intelligence with that. And anybody who's like, oh, well, we can't do this, or, oh, well, I mean, sure, go ahead. Keep on thinking about just focusing on the things that you can't see. Because I guarantee you, for every time somebody says, oh, well, I didn't see this model do this, there are 100 different iterations that can, and you're just not seeing it. Like, oh, well, then show me 100. It's like, go to Hugging Face. Look up whatever you want to see, and yeah, right? It's not there today, it'll be there in a week. But really exciting times that we're living in, and appreciate the patience, and know that it's been trying to get all this hardware, software stuff off the ground. That way, again, we're giving choice, not pivoting in a knee-jerk reaction, giving choice to folks. Linux is what we're primarily working with. Going forward, again, not here to say don't use Microsoft products, but those subscriptions, they stack up, they add up, and we can just make our own service, make our own product, save the operation expenditure. How could you not? Right? That's just good business. And on that inspiring note, you all have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.